Okay, so what I have is I've connected a squash attribute. I have a candle, and for all intents and purposes, this is set up like your toothbrush. So my squash attribute is controlling a squash and stretch. Doesn't look very good because my polygon box just doesn't have enough polygons to look like it's maintaining volume. Anyway, let's say I keyed it wrong, my set-driven-keys, and this attribute's not controlling the squash and stretch intuitively, and I need to change that around. So all I need to do is if I go to Window, Animation Editors, Graph Editor, then you will see a graph, and I've got the handle selected, but I'm not seeing any keyed information. Well, that's because the object that is keyed is not currently selected. The graph editor is selection sensitive. So if I click on the squash 1 in the output section of the channel box, it will load in the squash 1 node into the graph editor. And then once I've got that done, I can see that the factor attribute has keyed information. If I select it and press F, there is my keyed information. Okay, and just like any other animation, it has tweening values or whatever they're called, spline handles, and they can be edited. Okay, but let's say I actually wanted a positive. I wanted my positive squash to be like squishing it down, and I wanted my negative squash, negative 1, to actually stretch it out, because that's the opposite of squash. So I usually reserve the negatives to represent the opposite action of what my attribute says it's doing. Okay, so if I need to reverse this, I just select this factor attribute in my graph editor. I can select the key, and with the key selected, I can middle mouse click and drag this key around. Okay, I'm going to put that back and grab this other one first. So if I move it around, actually I had the right one the first time. If I move it around, all I wanted to show you was that this box is being controlled by this movement. Okay, so I can position that up, and I can grab this one, and I can position it down. Okay, and now I've effectively inverted how this squash controls the box. Okay, if I want to, I could delete the center key. So the reason we put that center key in there is so that when our attribute says 0, it actually is 0. Okay, so if I set my squash to 0 and I looked at my factor attribute, it's actually not 0 anymore. It's a negative 0.017. Okay, so we want to leave that 0 key in there to make sure it stays 0. And most of the time on these sorts of attributes where we're controlling squash and stretch or bending or that sort of thing, we don't want our lines sloped. So we need to change our splines to be broken so we get a straight line out of it. Okay? And those are the things you can do to manipulate your set-driven keys, and really any animation, any keyed information. Okay, so that's how to change set-driven keys.